As Democrats face long odds of keeping control of the House in the midterms and lawmakers face increasing pressure from constituents to tackle gas prices, some maintain that producing tangible results is more important than how it's done. Pelosi's announcement is likely to disappoint a growing number of Democratic lawmakers. Now, the issue has been an increasingly liability for the Democrats who control the White House and both chambers of Congress, and are also scrambling to fend off criticism from Republicans, blaming President Biden for the inflationary trend. A couple of weeks ago, some representatives introduced the Gas Rebate Act of 2022, which would actually send $100 monthly checks and around another $100 for each dependent. That's to Americans for the rest of 2022. In any month, the national average gas price is above $4. If the legislation is passed, the full payment will go to single filers with incomes of up to $75,000 and joint filers with incomes up to $150,000. It would then phase out for filers with higher incomes. There are some states that have already approved tax rebates, everybody, including Idaho, Georgia, and Indiana. In Idaho, the governor signed a bill in February to provide tax rebates for all year residents in the state. Those eligible will either get $75 per taxpayer and each dependent, or 12% of the tax amount reported on their 2020 taxes. Under the recently signed House Bill 1302, Georgia residents who filed 2020 and 2021 tax returns will get a one-time tax credit. Under the legislation, everybody, single filers get $250, heads of households get $375, and joint filers get $500. There has been criticism towards the bill from Republican lawmakers, so hopefully President Biden can get things sorted out and send out stimulus checks. If you guys agree, tell me in the comments. There is some huge breaking news. President Biden has announced that his new plan to provide more financial aid to millions of people might come sooner than later. The Biden administration has confirmed that the president will be signing an executive order very soon. States have also announced they will begin sending out larger monthly benefits, so you want to watch until the end of the video to make sure you don't miss out on this. The debt forgiveness will be through executive action. This follows the president asking the Education Department to look into his authority to act unilaterally on student loans. Bloomberg reported today that President Biden is weighing forgiving at least $10,000 in student loans per borrower. A source told The Hill that the door has been opened to possibly larger, and lots of options are on the table. The president in the 2020 campaign supported forgiving at least $10,000 in federal student loans per person, while others in his party, including Chuck Schumer, have pressed for $50,000 per borrower, or to cancel it entirely. Biden earlier this week said he is taking a hard look at forgiving some student debt, adding that he is not considering the $50,000 debt reduction. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki also said that this week the White House is still reviewing whether President Biden can act unilaterally forgiving student loan debt. Now, the Majority Whip James Clyburn told The Hill in an interview that he would support President Biden's move on this. I would see that as a good first step, whatever he feels comfortable doing. Now, Clyburn has been an influential and important lawmaker in the president's inner circle. He is pushing for a legislative path for up to $50,000 in student debt forgiveness with prominent progressives in the House and Senate. Now, as part of the CARES Act passed in March 2020, funding was set aside to provide emergency allotments, SNAP benefits to address temporary food needs during the crisis. In January 2021, President Biden directed the U.S. Department of Agriculture to consider allowing larger emergency allotments for the lowest income SNAP households. Now, SNAP is designed to supplement the food budget of low-income families to ensure that they can afford to purchase healthy food and avoid periods of food instability. During the crisis, that goal has been particularly crucial, with millions of households losing their main source of income and soaring inflation of recent months. But not all the states signed up to receive the additional funds for the residents, and as emergency programs wind down, states are dropping the emergency allotments. Only 40 states signed up to make their residents eligible for SNAP benefits in January 2022.
I got elected, I wasn't even old enough to be sworn in. I was only 29 years old. And because everything's based on seniority in the Senate, I got to hang out with folks like Fritz and Hubert long before you'd ordinarily at my age. Because by the time I was there a second term, I was chairman of some major committees. And so I'm going to talk more today about Fritz and what he pretend didn't exist, but Fritz's sense of empathy. Fritz had a special way about him that I don't think he would talk about. I could be wrong, but I never heard him talk about it. No, there was a question that Fritz famously asked staffers who came to work for him, he'd say, on the breakfast plate, what's the difference between the eggs and the bacon? Senator Smith and Klobuchar know the answer. By supplying the eggs, the chicken made a contribution. The hog was fully committed. And it always surprised Fritz I knew a little about agriculture. Delaware, my state, has in the Delmarva Peninsula, is a $5 billion industry. Chickens, a lot of chickens, a hell of a lot more chickens than people. And it's the biggest industry. But Fritz was always committed, not merely to the work of his lifetime, which all of you are familiar with. Most people know most of all. Everybody was blessed to know him in this state. You know, Reverend Hart Anderson, members of Congress, our military, distinguished guests, most of all, the Mondale family, Ted and William and Rebecca and Chan, all the grandchildren, Louis, Amanda, Barrett, Charlotte, Cassandra, Danielle, and all the dear friends of the family that are here as well. Because he always talked about you all as family. I'm moved to be with you here today as an honor one of the great giants in American history, and that's not hyperbole. Fritz was a giant in American political history. You know, a great American who, but he also had love for great Americans write about him and write things that related to him without them even knowing it. Great American novelist Edith Wharton wrote, there are two ways of spreading light: to be a candle or the mirror that reflects it. Fritz was both the candle and the mirror, in my view. Candle spreading light and the mirror reflecting it. And today, I speak of a friend of 5 decades about that light, the light of friendship and what it meant to me personally, to my family. Fritz and I first met in one of the darkest moments of my life. I had not intended to run for the United States Senate. I was involved, my state, to its great shame, was segregated by law. We have the 8th largest black population in America as a percent of population in Delaware. I got involved in politics indirectly by getting involved in the civil rights movement as a kid, being the only white